I want everyone to know that I took an oath to the Constitution, to the rule of law, to New Yorkers, and that's what I do each and every day.
Stunning allegations against Attorney General Tish James of New York that when a top aide was accused of sexual harassment, she kept quiet.
Some say that she's handling it far differently than her aggressive investigation of former Governor Andrew Cuomo.
From one of the women whose allegations of sexual harassment led to the resignation of the Attorney General's closest aide, her longtime chief of staff. She raises many questions about how the case was handled, and others have wondered why the Attorney General waited until after she won re-election to make the case public.
She clearly covered up sexual assault by her chief of staff, who happens to be a Muslim. She was sued in that action, 2022. And then only weeks ago, a Democrat-dominated appeals court did not kill the lawsuit, but dismissed her from it. This is what, among lawyers, is called wrongly decided. She did it. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. By the way, I have the names of all 3 women. Be great for a documentary. Anyway, so you have her covering up sexual assault. But wait a minute, isn't that what she drove Andrew Cuomo out of office over? So yet another example of Tish's hypocrisy.
Sophia Quintanar worked for Attorney General Tish James as a deputy press secretary until last year. She is speaking out tonight as both the victim of sexual harassment from James' chief of staff, Ibrahim Khan, and as a former employee who doesn't understand how her case was handled differently from the sexual harassment case brought by the office against former Governor Andrew Cuomo that forced him to resign. She charges that James took more care to protect Ibrahim Khan than the women who accused him of abuse. I find it just appalling to see how the office handled this publicly, Ms. Quintanar, 33, said in an interview with the New York Times. Me and the other victims, we deserve the same vindication that was given to those other victims that she stood up for. It shouldn't be any different because it happened in her house. Sophia Quintanar said she was referring to how Tish James protected the 11 women she claimed were victimized by Andrew Cuomo. She said Khan touched her inappropriately after a Brooklyn fundraiser and kissed her against her will. One of the problems for the Attorney General is that she didn't disclose the investigation of Khan, even though the probe of the charges was going on while she sought re-election. And it wasn't until today that she offered a public defense of her actions, saying, quote, "My office treated this matter as aggressively as every other matter that has come before our office. Within 24 hours, our office took disciplinary action and put Ibrahim Khan under restrictions, and within 72 hours, we engaged an outside law firm that began an impartial and exhaustive review of the allegations." But the issue has continued to percolate, and there are demands for an outside probe of the case. Governor Hochul was asked if it was unethical to hide the case until after the election.
New York taxpayers who had to foot the bill when the state's attorney general went after Trump could now be on the hook for AG Letitia James' legal defense fees as she tries to battle mortgage fraud charges. Now, the DOJ has opened an investigation into New York Attorney General Letitia James over loans and property purchases that she made in both New York and Virginia. And now she is trying to use taxpayer dollars to pay for her personal legal fees. What do you make of this and the fact that there is even a provision in the state's budget to cover an official's legal defense fees?
The legislature snuck in $10 million to make sure that the taxpayers pay for whatever legal defense she has against Donald Trump. She accused Donald Trump of the same, and yet, as her lawyer, Abbott Lowell, said recently, it was just an error. We made a mistake. Even alleging that her father was her husband, her spouse, that was a mistake. Yes, we made a few errors, but we later corrected that in the document. Just go back and look. Come on. This is why the Justice Department has opened an investigation.
Donald Trump has this, I'm on his enemies list, not only because of that $454 million judgment, but also because all of the cases that we have brought during his second tenure. And each and every day, as I walk in our beloved Brooklyn, people come up to me and say, "Tish, I'm afraid to take my child to school. Tish, I'm afraid to go to work. Tish, I have to close down my restaurant." And even individuals, immigrants, some of them undocumented, who have been witnesses to horrific crimes, I cannot serve as a witness, Tish. I'm afraid to go into that courthouse because it is no longer a safe space. They're claiming that I engaged in mortgage fraud, that I somehow decided that I was a resident of Virginia, which would be some commute every morning to the office at 28 Liberty. That somehow, I should be held to the same standard as Donald Trump, but somehow what I did was basically similar to what Donald Trump engaged in. And there's just no comparison. The allegations against me are totally baseless. And again, it was based on a 2-year investigation of his assets. And that judgment was issued by a Supreme Court justice, and there was an argument before the First Department Appellate Division, and we are awaiting a decision. I will respond to these baseless allegations at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way, but I am 100% confident that it will not result in any criminal indictment or action against me, and that it is nothing more than a revenge tour, and that Donald Trump just ultimately got to the J's, and I was next.
The key allegation, again, it sounds like you don't want to address them here, but I'm just going to put it out so people understand that a property that was owned in Virginia, and a mortgage that you signed, if I'm not mistaken, for that property, that they say you falsely represented yourself as a resident of Virginia, and that was essentially amounts to mortgage fraud since you're a resident of New York. What is your response to that?
It's baseless. Everybody knows I'm a resident of New York, specifically Brooklyn. And again, we will respond at the appropriate time in the appropriate way to these baseless allegations. And some media outlets like the Daily News over the weekend has indicated as much.
That's all you want to say?
That's all that I'm going to say.
We can go with Letitia James, built her career largely or solely on targeting President Trump. Now she's facing a criminal referral for potential mortgage fraud herself. How damaging is this level of hypocrisy? And, and does it underscore the political nature of the attacks on President Trump?
I'll put my old Article 3 project hat back on. A3P's founder, Mike Davis, has had quite a bit to say about Big Tish, about Letitia James, and the lawfare that she leveled against President Trump. She was one of the biggest antagonists among many, like Fani Willis and all of these Democrats who were trying to weaponize the judicial system against President Trump. And now she's using the same term, saying that she's going to stand up to President Trump as he attempts to weaponize his DOJ against her. I think the American people will see through this. I think the people of New York State will also see through this. This isn't just a one-off. There are multiple instances where she has falsified documents to receive better mortgage terms. I mean, this goes all the way back to her listing her father as her husband to get a reduced mortgage rate years ago. Yeah. And then she's also got an apartment complex, I believe, in New York City, where she's listing it as only 4 units. It was actually 5 to receive a reduced mortgage rate. And then this house in Virginia, she's claiming as her primary residence, although it's 300 miles away from her office in New York City. So there's a lot of evidence here that I think that Pam Bondi and the DOJ will be able to look towards. And I'll use her words against her. Tish James, nobody's above the law.
I love it. And she certainly tried to abuse the law and weaponize it. So given your work with Article 3 Project, what are the implications when a state's top law enforcement officer face such serious allegations? Could this be a turning point for accountability?
She needs to be held to a higher standard. We expect that from our public officials, but especially since she was putting President Trump under all of this scrutiny. I don't think the people of New York can trust her, but unfortunately, it's the state of New York. So we'll see if there's actual political ramifications. I think the mayor of New York City kind of said, hey, let's see how this plays out. I believe that the governor has her back, but this whole idea that it's her against President Trump just isn't going to stand up through scrutiny. It's her falsifying documents. So we'll have to see how this plays out, but it looks pretty damning to me.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.